Hi. Today I'll be demonstrating how to leverage SAP HANA's column labeling functionality as it pertains to both analytic and calculation views. When you're working with any tables or views, sometimes technical names may not be that user-friendly for your report writer or your consumers. So your administrators or your modelers may choose to perform some renaming exercise, and usually they may do that at the report level. They may do that within a modeling tool, for example, IBM Cognos Framework Manager, or in some cases, they may choose to do that at the root of the database itself. For example, through HANA Studio, which is what we're going to talk about today. Now, to illustrate this, if you look at the particular table shown here, report consumers may not always be all that familiar with the default column name 0cal-month or 0d-nw-div. They might be more familiar with, for example, calendar month and country or division product. So, for their analytic and calculation views, HANA offers the modeler the ability to give a user-friendly labels or captions for chosen columns. The challenge presents itself, though, when we need to access this metadata information through a SQL interface. The metadata is primarily meant for multi-dimensional type of reporting. In essence, extracting this information from the actual view is not directly feasible with regular SQL. This metadata is, however, stored in special dimension views, which can be accessed using a specific MDX select statement. So basically, today's presentation will show you how to fetch the column labels and subsequently how to incorporate them easily into Framework Manager model. So to do that, first, we'll create a model pointing to the dimensional view containing the label metadata. Second, we'll create a report, which can be used to fetch any columns for any view. And finally, we'll show you how to take the output from this report in order to change the labels accordingly within Framework Manager. Let's get started. Within IBM Cognos Framework Manager, the first thing we want to do is create a model pointing to the HANA analytic view with the modified column names. I'll explain this a little bit later on, but what we're going to be using here is we're going to use Framework Manager's language translation capability to translate basically our technical column names into column captions that can be used for your users. For this, I'm going to be changing languages now for the design aspect of Framework Manager, and I'm going to switch to English Zimbabwe. Select OK. Here we're simply going to select the HANA data source. As you know, all of the analytic and calculation views are found under the sysbic table. And here I'm just going to go and select the view that I'm interested in. In this case is the Great Outdoor Sales. And as you'll see here, some of our column names are in upper caps only, and I've got the translations done in HANA Studio, and I want to reflect that. So I'm going to be pulling this data back. So as you can see now, I've got my data imported, and I can see the view with all only in upper caps. The next step will be to go and fetch the proper column labels. As you make changes to your SAP HANA analytic and calculation views, whether it be changing the labels, adding some input parameters and variables, all this information is stored automatically for you in a number of views and tables under the schema sysbi. Let's take a look at that right now. So within HANA Studio, as you are creating and working with your analytic and calculation views, all the information is automatically stored in a number of views and tables. So what we can do here is through the regular metadata wizard, we can go and select our HANA data source. Here, as mentioned previously, all the information is stored under the sysbi schema. So here you've got a number of tables, all the ones that are prefixed with BIMC, as well as you have also a number of views which contain some further information about those particular views. Some of these, as you can see, we can just pull back easily through the regular metadata wizard, and you have them here. And if you wanted to, you could create some packages and subsequently create some reports to fetch some more information about those views. Next, though, we're going to be looking at a particular view which is not available through your regular JDBC SQL metadata fetches. Let's look at that now. The next step in IBM Cognos Framework Manager is to go and pull the view which contains both the technical name as well as the column labels for all of my analytic and or calculation view. The first thing here is we're going to right click on model and create a query subject. We have to go and do this route for the simple reason that we can't go and pull the tables directly using SQL. So we're going to manually pull the data source. We're going to give it a name. We're going to pick the data source that contains all this information, which is still our HANA data source. However, what we're going to do here is we're going to unselect the Run Database Query Subject Wizard. We're going to click on Finish. Here, we need to indicate to Framework Manager that this is not a regular type of SQL, but it's a particular statement that we need to send down to SAP. So we're going to go to the Query Information tab, click on the Option tab here, and under SQL Settings, we need to specify that this is a pass-through. Basically meaning, don't look at it, just send it down. Click OK twice. We'll go back to the SQL setting, and here we're going to type our MDX statement. MDX select star from BIMC underscore dimension view. Again, just to mention again, the BIMC dimension view is not available through regular type of SQL, which is where we're sending an MDX down to go and fetch the information. At this point, I'm just going to click on the OK button. And here, as you can see, we have all the information about all the different analytic view, their column names, their column caption, things like that. Next step is here very much just create a package. And now we're ready to create a report, going to fetch those column technical names as well as the captions. Let's go there now. We've opened now Report Studio, pointing it to a newly published package, HANA Labels. And now what we want to do is create a report to go and fetch those column technical names and column captions. For prompting purposes, because we want to make this reusable, we're also going to bring in the catalog name, the cube name, as we mentioned before, the column name, and the column caption. Now we want to make this again a prompted report, so we're going to select catalog name here and click on the wizard for creating a prompt page. And we're going to do the same thing for a cube name. The only difference here is we're going to make this a cascading prompt, so the cube names are going to be filtered based on the catalog name. So we'll just select the prompt control, go to cascading source, and simply select catalog name as the cascading source. Go back to the main page. We don't really care to have the catalog name and the cube name in the output. We simply use them for building our prompt page, so we can delete them from the output. Last thing to do here for this report is we're going to select the header for each one of the columns, and because we're going to be leveraging the translation, the language translation capability within Framework Manager, we're going to rename this to EN-ZW for English Zimbabwe. And for the column captions, we're going to be changing the label to EN. At this point in time, we can simply save the report. And we can now move forward to the studio and see how we're going to be leveraging this report. This is the Framework Manager model that we had originally created against our grayed out sales view. As we mentioned before, the technical column names here in upper caps, and that's what we want to go and fetch the lower cap version, or whatever the renamed version might be. So we're going to go back to the to our portal here, and this is a report that we just created. If I was to launch the report within the studio, the first thing I'll be prompted for is the catalog name, which is really the workspace within HANA Studio. I'll pick grayed out, select the next button, and now be prompted for all the different views or cube names that are present within that workspace. I'm interested in sales, so I'm just going to select sales and click on finish. And here you have the output. We notice that the technical name is first, and we have the translated value or the label, whatever we had decided to rename it within HANA Studio. What we want to do here is really launch the report with options, and we're going to be selecting CSV as the output. Run the report. Again, I'll be prompted again. I'll select my grayed out workspace or catalog name, select next, and finally pick the sales cube name, or which really means the view. Click on finish. I should be prompted now to save the output. I can save the output on my hard drive. And now it's saved here. I'm just going to copy this file and bring it directly into my export folder and paste it right here. We need the output to be 2 columns and in a text format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the label.xls file in Excel and simply resave it as a txt file. The only step that's required here is to ensure that everything's going to be saved the way that we can leverage it with an FM. I'm just going to go back to here, to the export folder as labels.txt. And we can just close Excel at this point in time. Now we're ready to go and bring this into Framework Manager to perform the translation. Just a small explanation as to what the reasoning behind the last step. The format that we want the translation file to be in is like this, basically in 2 separate columns. By default, the report output, if I was to change it now to a txt file, so basically if we look at that particular file, it is one continuous text which cannot be used for the translation, which is why we had done the last step. So now let's move to Framework Manager. So this was the original report, the original view that we had introduced. And as you know, we had done the active language as Zimbabwe. So the first step now that we need to do is in the project, languages. We need to define a new language, and we just simply need to bring in English as a project language. Click OK. Here, all we need to do now is go to Languages, import a translation file. And what we want to do is translate from English Zimbabwe to English and simply point to our labels translation file. We simply click OK and the translation will be done. Now obviously here the name don't get translated automatically to their labels, so all we need to do is go and change the active language from English Zimbabwe to English, and right away you'll see the brand new captions. Okay, now that we've translated our technical captions to more user-friendly labels or those with upper and lower caps, we've now published the package to our portal, and now we can go directly there. And what we'll see is as we now create reports, we're now going to see not the technical names, but we can use now see the more friendly terms. So for example, here we're going to see name of product, cost of unit, price of unit, exactly the way my users would like them to see. So if I run the report, now what we're going to see is exactly what we're expecting. This concludes today's presentation. Thank you very much.